Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high.
Welcome to Comic Books and You. Today we are going to be covering Battle Brick Road by Eric Weathers. This is one of those comics that I grabbed off the name of the associated artist. Basically, Eric Weathers has been working with everyone. He's basically the letterer of just about everything that you see in the indie comic sphere nowadays, and he's been doing a really good job at it. This is a book that he's been putting out. Issue 2 is currently financing through crowdfunding on battlebrickroad.com. Strongly recommend you go and check it out. There's good deals if you will need to get both of the books. As such, it's a Wizard of Oz retelling, reimagining of sort, and it works fairly well for what it is supposed to do. So let's get into it. As with any good Oz adaptation, our main character is Dorothy Gale, who's the orphan daughter of a kidnapped scientist. Well, she's not really orphan if the dad's still alive, just hasn't been having very good luck with her father. She was raised and taken care of by her aunt and uncle, the later being a general in the UDC. She's skilled in survival and combat, but is always protected by her robot protector, Toto. Of course, that's a little bit different from the book Dorothy, or the movie Dorothy as well, but it works really well in this particular case. Toto is also a little bit different. He seems to be a sentient AI machine that was given to Dorothy by her father. Designed as a protective weapon that seems to be able to do quite a bit. Can take quite a bit of damage as well, and use its own body as a weapon if need be. He's able to remote hack various things, access various computer systems, and it's armed to the teeth with both lethal and non-lethal options. So a very important tool in the arsenal of Dorothy here. Much more important than Toto was in the original book. We are also introduced in this issue to the Watcher of the East. So the Wicked Witch of the East never looked better than what we have here, and actually has a few lines and a few informations about her this time around. It's an evil AI robot that's determined to enslave humans using mind control, mind tethering technology, and she basically decided that this was the best way to manage humanity's destructive tendencies. Doesn't seem to like outsiders a whole lot, and as soon as Dorothy shows up, well, she kind of wants to enslave her like she enslaved all the other humans. But unfortunately, she still has an unforeseen bad luck regarding falling objects. So let us go through the story. This is 2 issues in one book. I'm not a huge fan of people doing that. It's just a little bit weird. I mean, you have a single book, just do it as a single longer run. But it's not the first time or the last time we'll see this, as this is the format that people are used to write in. But we're going to go through the entire book here. So we start the story with Thea, along with a contingent of UDC forces that are flying towards coordinates in Kansas, when they are met with a massive sandstorm in the North American desert, which is now composing most of North America. We have a nice picture here with the sun in the back. It's actually a really nice picture overall, I would say. Suddenly, from the said storm, there's a mass of flying apes that appear to be far more angry than they have any rights to be. And they start attacking the aircrafts of the UDC. They basically tear through the forces, killing most of them with ease. And our heroine falls off one of the planes. We then get a flashback to Dorothy's youth as her father is fleeing in an hovercar, fighting a bunch of highway bandits who appear to be robots that are on hoverbikes. He uses weapons called can lightning to take out a few of them, basically a EMP grenade from what it seems to be, and Toto, the robot, takes care of the few remaining one, both through brute force and through its inlaid weapons. After a little bit, Howard Gale gives his daughter a blue shemag, telling her that she will be with Toto and have adventures with her aunt and uncle. Things get a little bit sad, and he kind of gets into it with an unknown individual, which dad naps him, basically. We flash forward a bit, back to the more or less present, and Dorothy's trying to hack the UDC database to get more information as to where her father is. Fortunately, her uncle catches her in the act and decides to bring her to headquarters. They have a bit of a discussion, and her uncle reveals that they have a short video message from her father, which allows them to triangulate where the message came from, which appears to be Kansas, which is now deeply buried under sand and dust, and the UDC is planning to go and rescue him, or go there and figure out what's going on. The uncle doesn't want Dorothy to go, but she kind of convinces him that, even if he doesn't let her go, she'll probably find a way to go and do it. We flash forward again, back to the present day, as Thea is falling and has a bit of an altercation with one of the flying monkeys. Luckily for her, Toto manages to get an escape pod, brings it to her, and she climbs aboard as she is falling through the sandstorm. Soon after, can't be very much longer after, Thea wakes up, or maybe she was awake all the time, not quite sure here, and she tries to contact anybody else from the UDC, and nobody's answering. Suddenly, the window on her escape pod is broken open by a man wearing a weird mechanical mask who is basically trying to kill her while yelling that he needs some help. Sounds a bit counterproductive, trying to kill someone while asking for help. That's unfortunately how life is, I guess, for some of these people. I do like that most of the people we see in, what we will later refer to as Oz, they all dress more or less like day laborers or people from the early 1930s, which is maybe early 20th century even, which kind of really fits with the aesthetics of what a lot of people think of Oz nowadays. Thea escapes the first person by knocking him out, but she quickly gets surrounded by more mind-tethered individuals. She's quickly rescued by some survivors, people dressed a little bit like post-apocalyptic survivors. They manage to tell her to run away in order to not get mind-tethered, but the tethered kind of draw her towards what appears to be City Hall, or at least the most important building in the little city of Eastwich. She realizes that it's probably a trap, so she tells Toto to stay outside with a specific plan, and Thea walks in, meets with the Watcher of the East, who explains the situation a little bit and basically tells Thea that she's going to be mind-tethered because that's what humans deserve to be. Unfortunately for, like I said earlier, she still has an awful luck when it comes to falling objects. So Toto apparently went and got the escape pod and drops it on the Watcher. Kind of causes a lot of damage to the building, which is very annoying because it was a very nice building. But hey, better to be free than to have nice buildings in your neighborhood. All the mind-tethered humans are released, and they throw a massive party to celebrate afterwards. And the survivor teams who had helped Thea earlier basically explain the political landscape of Oz, with the Northwich, or the Watcher of the North, being pretty much gone, the Watcher of the West using bioengineered weapons to kill and slaughter humans, and the Watcher of the South being an awful isolationist that doesn't want to do anything or want anything to do with anybody else. Thea randomly mentions the yellow brick road their father told her to follow, which brings them to some little monument with a poem on it that they don't know really what to do with. Luckily, Toto accesses the monument, and it makes a yellow brick road appear. The next morning, the survivors and Thea follow said yellow brick road until they reach a cornfield where some of the locals say that it's protected by a character called the Scarecrow. They seem to be quite afraid of him. Well, the Scarecrow's not the thing that they should have been afraid of, because we got some lions, bears, tigers, oh my, that decide to show up and massacre the entire team that was escorting Thea. Thea barely hangs on to her life before she is rescued by a flying sickle. It's the last remaining bear creature in the head, and we are introduced to a man with a weird patchwork mask that tells Thea that she needs to move. And this is how both of those issues end. As I said, this is 2 issues in one book, but it goes really well as a single story. And I'm not sure why it was set up that way outside of that's just the way people write in American comic nowadays. There are a lot of different covers available for this particular book, some being exclusive to specific crowdfunding platform from what I understand, which is cool and uncool at the same time. Kind of feels like those exclusives you can only get at Target and stuff like that, which is somewhat annoying, but for a book that you want to read, maybe not as much. One I have, I think, is a Fun My Comic exclusive because it has the tagline at the top right, and it's a decently strong one. You've got our 4 main characters from The Wizard of Oz at the bottom. We've got the Watcher in the East at the top. It could be just about any villain at the top, but it works really well. We've got the Yellow Brick Road at the bottom. It has a strong effect, is easy to attract the eye. Very good composition. Overall, very effective cover. The one I've got is signed. I didn't ask for it, but I've got it. I don't care. I don't mind. I don't plan on reselling that book at any point in time, honestly. The problem I have afterwards is that most of the other covers kind of feel samey. This one here is just one of the pictures I've got in the book that is one of the other cover. Like I said, it kind of looks samey. You've got our 4 Oz character. We've got the same kind of action pose or fighting pose on them. It's nothing to get angry or happy about, but it's not something I would actually actively hunt the different covers for. They don't excite me as much, let's say, as some other covers with some other publishers and some other creators. As far as what goes around the book, well, this one came with a little card telling me that the Battle Brick Road 2 campaign was about to start August 25th, 2023. A nice touch. And when you know, it's higher probability that you're going to be have someone go and buy this next book. If you have upcoming campaigns fairly soon after your original campaign ships out, probably a very good idea as a creator to include just a little thing like that. I mean, those are business cards. They're not super expensive, but they do cost a little bit of money. But not a terrible investment, and it can help in selling further books in the future. We also got a cool art print of the Eastwich here, regular format for American comic book cover. This is precisely what I was talking about when I was talking about variant cover art prints being sold. You sold those things for $2, $3. I'd buy. You've got 17 covers. I'd buy possibly a whole lot of them if all of them are interesting or all of them are fun, as long as they're in a reasonable format and a reasonable price. I've seen some people trying to sell art prints for $40. That's getting way too expensive for what it's going to give me in the end. So a balance of the two would be nice. Here, this one is auto foil. Kind of cool overall. Kind of enjoy it. It was a nice addition that I don't think I was expecting. You got a nice special thanks page at the end and a nice introduction at the front from the author Zeb Hatfield. Decent enough work here. Things that I like to see here in indie books. Maybe the special thanks could be a little bit more dedicated. It's nice to have one of those pages with the thank you very much for buying our product and supporting us, etc. The cover is decent overall cardboard. It's non-gloss, basic binding. Overall pretty decent quality, but not the highest one I've seen in indie comics either. We've got decent paper quality, but not the best one either. It's a step up from your normal good indie quality paper. So pretty decent book itself, basically. And the book has a separate story, a short prequel story by a different artist that's called Meet Me in St. Louis. I might review that later, depending on everything that's going on and the books that come in. This is a fairly complex work overall. There's a lot of moving parts, lots of different characters, mechanical designs, creature designs as well. So it's not a thing that's as easy to evaluate as some of the other books and other things that we've evaluated and seen in the past. But I would say the quality here really goes from functional to really great. There's nothing catastrophically bad. There's nothing that's mind-shatteringly good either. The general gist of the whole thing works perfectly well. I will start this section, however, with the fairly mean part. Dorothy actually looks like a woman. That's huge improvement compared to a lot of more recent female characters we've been introduced to, or that already existed but were transformed a little bit in the past. She's got decent curves, she's got earrings, she's got long hair, she's got freckles. She looks really good overall, but unfortunately, she is kind of boring. She doesn't look like your standard modern girl boss, obviously, but she's dressed in military gear. There's nothing really exciting about her character physically or as far as the costume goes. This would more or less be an extra in a 90s comic, more or less. There's something missing as far as the character design goes, in my opinion. It's not awful, and overall very functional, like I was saying, but there's something missing here. A little bit with the same with Toto. He's boring overall. He's a nice big ball with two little arms on the side. I don't know. It looks like an Arrow from Gundam with less functionalities but more guns. That's about it. I don't know. Maybe a mechanical dog, hover dogs, something along those lines would have been a little bit better here. Something with a little bit more personality. This is kind of forgettable, unfortunately. Outside of that, the characters we get and the art we get here is pretty much realistic overall. We never really fall into caricature. We always stay in that fairly serious band of the spectrum of art, and that works perfectly well, and we're never taken out of the story because the art just goes completely outside what we expect. A few shots are a little bit clunky, a few facial features are a little bit weird at times, but I have to dig for it. Honestly, I had to take this picture very specifically because the positioning of the character looks a little bit weird here, but it's nothing game-breaking, and it's not caricatural here. It's just how they're represented. That's a little bit outside of the norm. The air work on Taya is actually really nice and flowing. It's very different than what we have sometimes in comics where some people have helmet air, or one of the reasons why all current female heroines have short hair in American comic, where they don't want to have to do the work on the air of the characters. Mechanical work for everything else is also really good and really imaginative. Yes, this looks like a Chevy with plates on the side, but it still looks really, really good. The other bikes are really, really nice. Same with the Condor jets that they were using at the start of the story. Everything works really well for that. The firearms are very traditional, very classic. But in the end, it doesn't really matter because an AK-47 will still be as effective as it is now in 600 years. Probably could find an AK-47 600 year, tap it on the side, and it'll probably work. So firearms could have been a little bit futuristic, but it's not necessary in this particular story. The flying monkeys are really nice. We do have the feeling of flying chimpanzees, which would be the most aggressive type of ape out there. Fortunately, with the size and the coloring, we kind of feel like they're gorillas, which is the opposite. Gorillas always look really menacing, but they're basically big herbivores that, yeah, they can probably rip you in half, but they wouldn't do it willingly. It would be a side effect of defending themselves or something like that. Chimps, on the other hand, yeah, they are complete and absolute assholes, and will kill things, well, a little bit like human for pleasure. It's appropriate to use chimps here for the flying monkeys. I'm not a huge fan either of the mind-controlled human in Eastwich. Really feels like a starospore stuck on someone's head, but it's mechanical rather than physical and biological. It's not as imaginative as it could have been. I would have gone with a cerebral necklace and something along those lines. Not to hide the facial features, just put it at the back of the head as a clamp. That would have been what I would have done there. It's just me, obviously. But here, it's probably because I've been reading too much DC recently. It really, really reminded me of Starro way too much. Panel work is also really, really good. The page real estate is really, really well used throughout the entire book. This is something that's really top of the line here, actually. Next level, I would say. Whoever they've got doing those panels and editing the positioning and everything, they're doing a great job right there. This is not the first or the last Wizard of Oz adaptation we will see out there, but is it inspired and imaginative? Tyler Carpenter, the creator of Girls with Mega Fists, had a bit of a tussle on the interwebbernet this weekend, because that's basically what he said, that most creatives were not creative enough, and that's what led to sales not going up. Is this creative enough? Well, I would say more than likely. I mean, Dorothy being a special force operative in a post-apocalyptic world, yeah, that's pretty different. Toto being a combat robot, that's also very different. It's imaginative enough, the art is good enough as well, and most of it is inspired enough. Like I said, maybe Dorothy should be a little bit more different, but overall, it works really well. Is it imaginative enough for people who are not aware of The Wizard of Oz to want to buy it? I would say so as well. It's not a one-for-one adaptation of Oz. It's not a prequel, a sequel, a retelling, whatever. It's its own thing, and it works fairly well as that. That's an overall pretty good sign, in my opinion. America turning into a massive desert and dust bowl is not just a potential post-apocalyptic threat, but it's a very likely scenario if North America is not more careful with its aquifers. Environmental discussions are always fun to have, and everyone has their own opinions on it. You have to be careful whichever side you are trying to discuss it, obviously. But it's important to think about those things. And it's good to see that some of those concerns still come up, even in more indie comics. So it's an interesting thing overall. I'm not a huge fan of Thea being the key to everything, but that's pretty much Wizard of Oz in the end. Dorothy is originally in Oz absolutely useless in the end. She's being used by everyone to reach their own goals, because all she really needed to do is click her eels and she would have been able to go home. Here, it's far more involved. Dorothy is far more important to the plot overall. It's a bit troporific, yes, but that makes Thea's father the keyhole, and she's the key to reaching that particular location. It's also very nice that it's her father that's actually the inventor and the big creator here. I would have expected the mother, in any standard mainstream comics. Even her uncle is not shown as a bad person. He's a military officer. He has his own background. He seems to love his wife. That's a perfect character overall and a very nice father figure, even though we don't see him for very long. It's nice that we have significant differences between how the witches behave in Oz here, rather than the very random and generic stuff that we have from Oz, which the original author seems to have drawn from witch trials that his mother had read about, something like that. Here it's a bit interesting to have them be fairly different from one another. And it's nice to see that none of them are seen as good. There's just some that are a little bit better overall. We are given the standard flash forward setup in this story, as with the vast majority of books that come out nowadays. It's a trope that works, but it is getting a bit tired in the end. The thing is, as long as it works, and as long as we keep seeing it in the appropriate way, I don't see any major problems with it, unless it gets exposed for what it is, just a trope to get people to keep reading. The first issue here is really our setup to the story. From Thea's point of view, it establishes the post-apocalyptic sci-fi setting, and it's a nice post-apoc setting in a way because it's not entirely messed up. It seems like there's a lot of weird mutants and robots and all that stuff, but there seems to be a functional government with the UDC and maybe even functional people working there. We get the flashback to Thea's youth, which is also pretty good overall. But like in most American comics, I would have used a different background color or a sepia tone added on top of all the panels, or a different panel type just to really denote it's a flashback. Because, yes, we fully understand there's a big word at the top that says before or something like that. Normally, people are able to easily get what's going on, but we have to face it. Some people basically have the reading capabilities of third graders and even lower, and would just panic over something like that. And it's a thing that's more or less standard in American comics. Maybe like in manga, whenever you have a flashback, the pages are always black rather than white. Those are things that kind of work in the format and in the comics in general. Maybe it's a thing that we need to think of in general. The story flows extremely well, and when we get to issue 2, we're in gear, and we don't have an awful lot of exposition. We have that 2 pages of people talking about this, what Oz is and how Oz is behaving with the witches and everything, but it works really well. One of the things I do find weird is that we are introduced to our third main character at the end of the issue, and I was kind of expecting at the end of issue 1 that we would have our Tin Man, our Scarecrow, our Cowardly Lion, and Dorothy already together, just because we have them on the covers, and because this is what we really associate with Wizard of Oz. Not too unusual, and it's nice to end with a new character being introduced. We'll see how it goes when we get to BBR2. Some people did point out that another Oz adaptation, Wicked, was probably one of the starting point for woke culture. Wizard of Oz has always been a very left-leaning, iconic movie and such, so it's nice to actually have a book or someone trying to reclaim it to make it more of a center story. Doesn't need to be far right-wing or whatever, but maybe leave that iconic leftist behavior a little bit further behind. I very much enjoy most of the book here, despite my many gripes and complaints. Story-wise, everything is clicking, and my complaints about art are generally easy to fix over time, or I can ignore them if things remain the same as well for some of the things. I'm mostly okay with it. In my opinion, this is a strong recommend. I would recommend everybody get their copy of this if they're interested in just this particular universe. And with the campaign going for BBR2 right now, it's a great time to get both books at a very good price off of their website and help smaller creators, indie creators, and someone who's been at the forefront of helping all sorts of indie creators out there with his work. So I thank you very much for listening to me today. I hope you have a very nice rest of your day. Remember to ring the bell, click the like button, subscribe, all that good jazz. Keep on reading comics, keep on enjoying them. I'll keep analyzing them, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.